olive equals peace, garden equals safety. No, I don't think that was intentional actually. I think Taylor just had Esty choose a restaurant, but it's quite a coincidence that Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. I post about books and music, mostly Taylor Swift. Today I'm going to be going through every single botanical reference Taylor has ever made in any of her songs. Every single studio album, as well as any singles or collabs, will be included. And when I say botanical, I mean flowers, plants, leaves, any sort of chlorophyll related life that sprouts from the ground. So this is kind of in chronological order, but not completely, because I couldn't tell which singles came out before or after the albums of that year. First we have Stay Beautiful. Corey's eyes are like a jungle. This could obviously mean his eyes are green like a jungle. The jungle is also symbolic with adventure and a lot of different stories. It can also symbolize many layers to a person, since a jungle has different species living in every single layer of it. She could be saying he's super exciting to her and pushes her out of her comfort zone, or there are layers to him that are unexplored and she sees all of that in his eyes. Next is Should Have Said No. It's strange to think the songs we used to sing, the smiles, the flowers, everything is gone. I think this is super obvious comparing smiles and shared songs with flowers. It's all the happy aspects of a relationship that can no longer happen again because of this person. Very major Babe vibes from Red. Next is Mary's song, Oh My My My. Take Me Back to the House in the Backyard Tree. This song really makes me think of Seven from Folklore. I think it's just a further explanation of the picture she's trying to paint of a literal treehouse without saying the word treehouse. And I really appreciate that she's using her own description. She's calling a treehouse the house in the backyard tree. I feel like Taylor was trying to avoid cliches, even in her early writing for the most part. Next is our song, I Almost Didn't Notice All the Roses. This has major Lover album vibes to me. Through the mundane ups and downs of life, you come home to the house that you built with your lover that is a comfort and a safe place, and you come home after a bad day and you just want to like eat, shower, and go to bed, but then you're pulled out of only thinking of those basic needs when you see the thoughtful thing they did for you. So roses mean different things depending on color. I'm going to assume these roses are orange, since the Our Song music video is covered in orange roses, and in that case coral and orange roses means desire and passion. I'm only me when I'm with you, in a field behind your yard. An open field represents people who are open with each other. I think this is a friendship with no secrets, and they both fully trust each other with everything. Christmas must be something more. Would you still want to kiss without mistletoe? So in ancient Celtic cultures, mistletoe symbolizes an absence of violence, but there's also the obvious reference to the tradition of kissing under the mistletoe. She's saying, if we took this physical material thing away, would you still want to participate in that tradition? The next one for this song is It's Something We All Try to Ignore and Put a Wreath Up on Your Door. So wreaths can symbolize glory. The circle shape that it's in also symbolizes eternal life and of course Christ. This song is religious anyways. This is an instance of people putting all of their effort into celebrating the material object itself instead of praying or going to church or whatever it is Taylor is trying to convince the listener to put more time and effort into doing. They are just decorating with all of these objects that symbolize their faith. Christmas is when you were mine. Please take down the mistletoe because I don't want to think about that right now. The mistletoe symbolizing peace is interesting here because she's obviously not at peace. It makes me think of a relationship that's gone sour, like the unreleased track Battle. Here she isn't saying let's take down the mistletoe to see if the tradition is still there. She's saying I do not want to be reminded of this. I don't want the tradition to still be there after we take away this physical object. Love story. So I sneak out to the garden to see you. In religion, gardens represent an earthly paradise created by God as a safe enclosure. It's the one place Romeo and Juliet can just be relaxed in because it's safe and they can be together with no risk. Gardens also represent innocence. Their love is an innocent occurrence in the middle of this feud between their families, which is definitely not innocent. The best day, past the pumpkin patch. In the US, pumpkins are seen as an in-between sort of fruit that thrives in the in-between season autumn. It symbolizes a transition to darker times. We see this happening as Taylor gets older. As the song goes on, she hits the age 13 and she is now bonding with her mom, not because they're having a family day at the pumpkin patch, but because Taylor is going through some hard times with bullying and she needs her mom. So I think that pumpkin is kind of like foreshadowing the dark times ahead in the second verse. This entire video is just me reading so into things for fun. Another one happens in this song, all the trees change in the fall. So leaves change in color symbolize symbolizes growth. When Taylor was younger, she didn't know why growth happened or why it had to happen. But now that she's 13 and writing the song for her mom, she now has perspective of why she had to go through the bullying that then brought her closer to her mom. Back to December. You gave me roses and I left them there to die. The roses represent the love they had, and when roses die, it represents the fragility of a relationship, how everything must come to an end. Superman, wishing the flowers were from you. So she talks about someone else sending her flowers, cards, and phone calls, and she wishes they were all from him. Why is he not putting any effort into sending her things while he's away? Probably because it's John Mayer. All these gifts and effort put in symbolizes somebody else's devotion to Taylor, but she only wants Superman's devotion. Little love triangle going on. The gifts could be from an admirer, or it could maybe be like her fans, possibly. Both of us. This collab is so underrated. So the line is, and the grass so green on the other side, make an N-word wanna run straight through the fence. So one source told me Taylor did write on this song. Another one didn't include her as a songwriter. If she did write anything, I think it's just the 2 lines that she sings on this song. But anyway, this line does make me think of Taylor's writing a little bit because it's a common phrase that is turned into something new. The grass is so green that it makes you desperate enough to want to just break down the fence that separates it from you. This song is really underrated. It's about poverty and how suffocating that is. The grass symbolizes health and life. It's also the same color as money, coincidentally. And people love to say money can't fix everything, but for people in poverty, it literally is life or death, especially in countries without healthcare. The lucky one chose the Rose Garden over Madison Square. So I think she's either referencing a much smaller performance venue called the Rose Garden, or she's talking about a literal rose garden, and it's like that kind of escapism we see later in The Lakes, because being surrounded by nature and this garden, which as we talked about is a symbol for safety, that's much better for you than the stress of huge crowds of people and possibly the pressures of performing. It's a fun job, but it is a job. Ronan, flowers pile up in the worst way, no one knows what to say. This is so heartbreaking. The flowers are a symbol of words unspoken, and no one is comfortable saying anything, so they just put their words into flowers, I guess. I honestly think words can speak louder than flowers, and she's kind of hinting at that in this song, but it's not fully explored. All Too Well 10-minute version, autumn leaves falling down like pieces into place. That's surprisingly the only one. Autumn leaves symbolize change, whether that's the change of a new and exciting relationship that's forming, or the change that will happen when it ends. Likely the change that happens when it ends, because we all know what comes after autumn. And she also does develop autumn into winter during the 10-minute long version, winter being a symbol of death, like the death of a relationship, or maybe even a part of Taylor. Blank space, cherry lips, crystal skies. Cherry is a fruit, it grows off a tree. I count it as botanical. So cherries represent fortune. The entire song is about this character that is so rich but can't keep men, so she stresses that in describing the color of everything down to her lipstick. Rose garden filled with thorns, so gardens are safe havens, as discussed previously, but thorns represent sin and pain. I think it's a continuation of the contrasts of like heaven and sin, magic and madness, roses and thorns. Out of the woods. Are we out of the woods yet? The woods represent lawlessness and freedom. There are plus sides to being in the woods with someone, no rules, unbreakable heaven, but it also represents being lost and potential dangers. You never know whether what you're about to encounter is amazing and freeing or the stuff of nightmares. The monsters turned out to be just trees, so trees are positively viewed. They represent life and growth, and Taylor thought they were seeing monsters in these metaphorical woods, aka the relationship, so they ended it, but then the monsters turned out to be just trees, which are like possibilities of the relationship growing and being great. But how are you supposed to know that when you are in the woods? Like, you never know what's actually around the corner. And this line has her thinking she regrets ending it because what if there are no monsters there? But of course she chose not to live with uncertainty. Wildest dreams, red lips and rosy cheeks. So rosy cheeks is a common phrase, but when overanalyzing it, you can come to the conclusion that roses symbolizing love can show that she hopes he remembers her, literally with love emanating from her face, like viewing her in a very positive light in his memory. Clean, the flowers that we'd grown together died of thirst, comparing love to a garden again. They grew all this beauty together and then it died. Don't blame me. I once was poison ivy, but now I'm your daisy. So poison ivy sends a keep out message. She's talking about how she was so reclusive and didn't want to let anyone in because she had been so hurt right before she met Joe. And now she is a daisy. Daisies symbolize innocence and purity. She's suddenly not jaded. She literally went from a snake to a butterfly maybe, and her naivety is back. Gorgeous, whiskey on ice, sunset and vine. So sunset and vine is an intersection intersection of two streets in Hollywood. She could be referencing something in that area. I did look at it on Google Maps. There's a luxury apartment complex there called Sunset Vine Apartments. There's also a Chipotle and a Tender Greens. Maybe she's romanticizing a good Chipotle dinner. Now that she eats burritos, I would do it too. Also, there are a couple of banks for robbing if you are ready for it with your getaway car. Vines symbolize endurance and determination. She's maybe trying to manifest this spark between her and the love interest as a relationship that lasts and endures like a vine growing, even though at this point she doesn't even know if he likes her back or even is single. Call it what you want. All my flowers grew back as thorns. So this is more botanical transformations. This is the reverse of the don't blame me line. She once was naive and not jaded, and now she is, and she has grown thorns to protect herself. Cruel summer. I snuck in through the garden gate every night that summer just to seal my fate. I think the garden symbolizes her home. It's a safe haven usually. She comes home from having a sneaky link with this guy, and she enters through the garden to get into her home. Maybe if that's like in her front yard. Maybe it is an uncertain, undefined relationship, and she views coming home as like now being able to let her guard down in her own home. It's safe like a garden. Or she's sneaking into a garden to meet her love, like in Love Story. But I always pictured it as sneaking home. In this case, it would be her love being a safe haven, but I don't think that's what it is because it's an undefined, no strings attached scenario. It's literally a cruel summer. I don't think this relationship was a safe garden for her yet. The man, they'd say I played the field before I found someone to commit to. So this is a double standard call out, obviously, but fields do represent openness, as we talked about before. Her being open with her heart is frowned upon as a woman, but not as a man. I think he knows. Lyrical smile, indigo eyes. So indigo is the color dark purple, but it also is a plant. The indigo plant symbolizes devotion and wisdom. You're so much older and wiser. No, but I think she looks up to this lover in a way. She admires his intelligence. There's a wisdom and intellectual aspect to his eyes. That's why she sees all the books beside his bed and wants to read them all, to see what's under his attitude. What does he ponder? Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince running through rose thorns. Thorns again, she's plowing right through the sin and pain those represent to get out of this hellhole. Or maybe this was before she gave up and this was while she's still in the hellhole and she realizes it's not worth running through rose thorns before she decides to come back again anyway. Cornelia Street. I rent a place on Cornelia Street, I say casually in the car. So this is a real street she lived on, but she used pink Cornelias on her merch. So pink Cornelias symbolize a longing for someone and they're given to someone who you miss. She's anticipating having to one day miss this person and then having to give him Cornelias. Honestly, that's probably one of my favorite connections I've made. It's nice to have a friend. Rice on the ground looks like snow. So rice is a grain. It is a plant. I was going balls to the wall here. Okay, no plant left behind. So rice on the ground at a wedding is meant to imitate rain, and it symbolizes prosperity, fertility, and good fortune. So the couple has money, success, and children. Christmas tree farm. In my heart is a Christmas tree farm. So I think this is a less religious interpretation of Christmas plants, if you will. In her heart is a Christmas tree farm, and it doesn't mean traditional symbolism of Christmas trees. I think it's like her own interpretation of what Christmas trees mean to her based on being raised around them. So in her heart is her childhood home, basically. Sweet dreams of holly and ribbon. Holly represents eternal life. Christians also say the leaves represent the crown of thorns worn by Christ, and the berries represent his blood. Some cultures also view holly as symbolizing peace, which is a really good tie-in to this line, as the children are dreaming of this peaceful time under the mistletoe. So this symbolizes more peace and romance. She connects this romance to the comfortable feeling she gets from thinking of her childhood home. The last great American dynasty. She stole his dog and dyed it key lime green. A key lime comes from a plant. Key limes are better smelling but more bitter to the taste than other limes. And maybe this represents Rebecca's personality as she is dyeing this dog's fur. She seems so high class and lovely, like how a key lime smells so wonderful. But she is a mad woman. She can hold a grudge, and there is a bitterness to her. She doesn't fit in, and she's not like all the other upper class women, limes, who are just there to be pleasant. Your takeaway from this video: Rebecca is a lime. I should have been an English teacher. Exile, balancing on breaking branches. That alliteration gives me goosebumps every single time. So branches represent unity. Their union as a couple is literally breaking. Also, Taylor sings this line, not Bon Iver. The trunk of the tree is actually seen as the masculine part, while the branches are the feminine part. So she's viewing it from the branches' perspective as a woman. They are very much not seeing eye to eye, so I could see how that conclusion could be made. made by me and me alone because no one else is talking about this. 7, please picture me in the trees. So trees represent growth and life. She says, picture me when trees were the only thing that had grown, like she was too early in life to have changed at all. Sweet tea in the summer. So tea leaves represent simplicity, and she's talking about a simpler time in both of their lives. This seems kind of intentional. Now that I think about it, I think she is painting a simple life in this picture. Please picture me in the weeds. So weeds represent devastation and disorder. She says, picture me back when I was unruly, before I learned civility, back when I learned from the weeds and was pushy about getting everything I wanted instead of being polite. Invisible string. Green was the color of the grass where I used to read at Centennial Park. So grass symbolizes health and life. She says she had all this life ahead of her where she could vividly imagine meeting somebody at this park where she read. There was no timeline or expiration date on this manifestation because she was so young and had so much romantic life to look forward to. When you're in your early 20s especially, like meeting your soulmate could happen at any time. Gold was the color of the leaves when I showed you around Centennial Park. So gold means something is sacred and precious. So from this green newness, later in the song, the color turns to this dependable gold, which is the color of having something precious, and leaves symbolize growth. So she's now growing with this lover. Mad woman, do you see my face in the neighbor's lawn? So lawns actually equal capitalism. No, seriously, they're a status symbol in our society. They don't really serve a purpose. It's just to look green and show that you can afford to own land and also make it look manicured and not really use it for anything. So she's painting a picture of where this person she's singing about lives, in a neighborhood full of manicured lawns. He's rich, he's untouchable, but Taylor's face still haunts him. Betty, would you tell me to go fuck myself or lead me to the garden? In the garden, would you trust me if I told you it was just a summer thing? Gardens are safe places. He's asking would it go from a tense atmosphere to safe as you lead me to the garden, and he's hoping for this to happen. Hoax, this has frozen my ground. So I didn't include any other instances of the word ground in her songs, but I think in this instance with frozen ground, it's particularly interesting to think that nothing can grow in her ground now. She does not use the ground, she calls it her ground. So it's like this toxic love is being compared to a winter that is so long that it essentially forces her to starve and go hungry because she can't plant crops. It's a love that's literally freezing up her life and her ability to grow. My barren land, again from a botany perspective, holy shit, she can't grow anything because of this person. Also, can we talk about the fact that she says, my broken drum, you have beaten my heart, when she literally uses her heartbeat as a drum in Wildest Dreams? Holy hell. The lakes, I want to watch wisteria grow right over my bare feet because I haven't moved in years. So wisteria symbolizes immortality because it can live to be over 100 years old. She wants to memorialize herself in this nature environment, a lot like those poets did. Wisteria is also meant to show welcome. She is welcome in this space. A red rose grew up out of ice-frozen ground. This is such an obvious connection to the previous song. It somehow grew up out of the frozen land. It's a metaphor connecting Hoax and the lakes because her ground was frozen, and now that she's escaped society, something is blooming again finally, slowly but surely. And what is growing first? A red rose, which symbolizes true love. Joe is the first thing to grow out of her frozen ground. Willow, life was a willow and it bent right to your wind. So willows symbolize hope, a sense of belonging, and safety. The willow is all that is familiar and planned, and it's just being bowled over for this guy. She's willing to rearrange her whole life for him. Champagne problems, how evergreen our group of friends. Evergreen symbolizes immortality. It comes again every year, just like how this group of friends maybe reunite with each other during certain holidays, but they won't say the word evergreen anymore because now it's awkward since they were a couple amongst the friend group, and then breaking up can really mess up a group friendship dynamic. Gold rush, I don't like slow motion double vision in rose blush. So I've been seeing people saying that this line means I don't like getting drunk, and I could see it, but I think it means deliriously jealous because this person is so sought after, and she feels either shame at her simpish behavior or she's angry from the jealousy she's experiencing, and that's why her face is turning red. Roses symbolize love. She doesn't want her love for this person to show right on her face because something made her jealous because everybody's after this person. I see me padding across your wooden floors. So wood represents longevity. Generally, it depends on the type of wood, but it could be her mind wanting it to be real and for the fantasy to endure and have longevity to it. It fades into the gray of my day-old tea. So the tea leaves equal simplicity. This complex fantasy vanishes and she's brought back to the simplicity of her life. No body, no crime. Esty wasn't there Tuesday night at Olive Garden. Olive equals peace, garden equals safety. No, I don't think that was intentional actually. I think Taylor just had Esty choose a restaurant like a Mad Libs game. But it's quite a coincidence that the second something very much not peaceful or safe happens to Esty, she is not showing up to the Olive Garden. That is the first sign that something is terribly wrong. She cannot join in on the peace and safety. Happiness. Honey, when I'm above the trees, I see this for what it is, but now I'm right down in it. All the years I've given is just shit we're dividing up. So this is a play on seeing the forest for the trees. When you're above the trees, you see how much growth they all symbolize as a whole, but when you're in them, you're just overwhelmed. You don't know what's around the corner, like an out of the woods, so she's bitter. Honey, when I'm above the trees, I see it for what it is, but now my eyes leak acid rain on the pillow where you used to lay your head. So it's another play on seeing the forest for the trees, but she's still in it and she's crying acid rain, which is interesting from a botanical standpoint because this will obviously kill any new growth in the bud. She needs to get this acid rain out of her before she is able to experience all of the growth that those trees symbolize. Coney Island, were you waiting at our old spot in the tree line by the gold clock? So a tree line is the point on a mountain above which trees cannot grow due to high elevation, I think it is. I think the male character dies in this song and she's describing the point at which the trees cannot grow anymore. And I think that's comparing that to his life suddenly stopping. And the clock is gold. Gold means something precious, but he's out of reach now. She did not meet him there. Ivy, I can't stop you putting roots in my dreamland. So roots are a symbol of stability. She obviously harbors some resentment for her husband, so she's viewing this man she's cheating on with as the stable one. Maybe she's in a bad relationship with her husband and has a hard time escaping, but she wants this other partner to take roots in her dreamland and show her what real stable love looks like. My house of stone, your ivy grows and now I'm covered in you. So ivy symbolizes fidelity. Funnily enough, it will not let go of something it grows around. It's usually seen as a nuisance on a house because it's so hard to get rid of, but in this case she's letting the ivy just enclose her house that she's built with this potentially awful husband because the house is not stable like his roots are. It's not something she wants to save. She wants the ivy, which is faithful and never going to leave. Clover blooms in the fields, so clover symbolize luck. The bridge is about sneaking around with this other lover. She says luck is on their side, but it's still nerve-wracking because you never know when or if you could get caught. Cowboy like me, now you hang from my lips like the gardens of Babylon. So the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were one of the 7 wonders of the world. He's being compared to a wonder of the world. That makes me think of Handsome, You're a Mansion with a View. I guess that garden supposedly had a very complex construction and irrigation system going on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that could be her comparing it to all the different sides of the love that they have, how it's kind of complicated and unconventional. There's a lot of layers to it. Long story short, when I dropped my sword, I threw it in the bushes and knocked on your door. So the only representation I could find of a bush is one that is on fire because that happens in the Bible, I guess. In that case, bushes represent light and illumination, and I feel like maybe it could work for a bush that's not on fire too, because something can be hiding in a bush, but not as many somethings as could be hiding in the woods. So maybe she feels like the truth is in there and it's bound to come out. It's not like the woods where any and everything is in there and it's impossible to find. It's like one bush and there's something in there and it's probably the truth. So she throws her sword into the bush to quit trying to defend herself, knowing the truth will come out of the bush, and it did. Her name was cleared. Marjorie, watched as you signed your name Marjorie. So this is a name that is derived from marjoram, which is an herb. This herb is included in wedding bouquets because it symbolizes happiness and love, and I feel like Taylor is going to have marjoram in her wedding bouquet. Okay, so those are all the botanical references in Taylor Swift's songs. If I missed any, please leave them down below. I spent like 3 hours looking through her entire discography. I will be very disappointed if I missed something. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Please leave me any requests down below. If you want to follow me on my Instagram, it is right here, and if you want to follow me on my TikTok, that is right here. I will see you all next week for another video, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye guys.